Righto. We are a go for Leadership Week 3, and the sharing of the screen should now be working. Um, Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming along. A few apologies that I just mentioned before we started recording, but I'm sure they'll catch up. Um, so, a bit of housekeeping. Um, we were scheduled to do an assessment briefing tonight. I'm going to postpone it to next week. There's quite a few people who have assessments outstanding. So I'm going to give everyone a week to try and catch up a little bit and to submit those assessments that are outstanding before I do the final briefing. We've got a month after next week's lesson without a lesson. So there's time, if I do that briefing next week, for people to do the assessment, the final assessment after that, which is the leadership profile. Because we finish week 9 of school term, state school term, next week is our last lesson for term 3. Then we have week 10 with no lesson. We have the school holidays with no lesson. And then the first Monday back is a public holiday in term 4, the King's birthday, straight after the NRL Grand Final. So we will start the week after that, week 2 in term 4. And I'll have an assessment and delivery schedule for everyone in the next 7 days, which I'll go through next week, and I'll email out to everyone so you'll know what term 4 looks like. There's only 2 units in term 4. We only do about 6 weeks in term 4. We do 2 3-week things, and then we're done. You've got your Cert 4 if you've got all that. And I will include in the assessment delivery schedule a save the date for our end of year graduation celebration dinner. Okay. So you're all invited. You can invite your guests. If you're a Cert 4 student, it's included in your fees. So you're coming to a dinner that you've already paid for. I was going to say free, but it's not true. You've already paid for it. But if you'd like to bring anyone extra, and you can bring as many as you like, they will pay their own way. But I'll have all those details for you next week. And the assessment briefing for next week will fit in with next week, because next week is we're going to do a 1-hour session on church history, all the way from the end of the book of Acts to now. People last year found that I got the most positive feedback out of any week after we did the church history session. And it's going to fit in with your leadership profile assessment, because you need to pick someone, either historical or recent history, for your leadership profile. So it will go hand in hand. Okay, let's get into this week. So this week, we're going to do, again, leadership lessons through the lens or the prism of a small group leader. Less about the nuts and bolts this time, more about some actual pretty good leadership stuff. So remember last week we discussed a few things regarding small groups. We talked about why it's important to have small groups, or why every church has small groups. We looked at some scriptures with that. We talked about the prerequisites of a small group leader. They were broken into 2 categories, mainly to do with character and commitment. And then we have the tasks of a small group leader. We got through some of those last week discussing. And then we launched into some tips for a great small group discussion. I've since facilitated those small group discussions since then and followed none of my own tips, but that's okay. Glenn Noble was there. He can give you all the hot goss about how it went. How you doing, Glenn? You with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good to have you.
Sweet.
Righto. So we talked about the leaders' tasks last week. We talked about facilitating discussion, prayer, and ministry. We talked a bit about that last week. Going to talk a bit more tonight. Fostering community, low-level pastoral care, promoting the vision of the church, mobilizing the group to look beyond themselves, raising up leaders. So we're going to talk specifically tonight. I want to focus most tonight on how to raise up leaders and how to cast vision or promote vision, because people hear those things and they're a little bit like, no one's ever taught me how to do that. We know we're supposed to, but nobody teaches you how. And we can't go through everything in a 1 hour session, but hopefully you're going to walk away from tonight going, at least I have a bit of an idea about how to go about that from now on. But before we get to that, fostering community. So when we're running a small group, we need to think of ourselves as leading a community, not just a meeting. So if we're just hosting a meeting every week or fortnight, it really is just a Bible study then. But the way our church does small groups, and the way a lot of churches do small groups, um, it's more than the meeting. There's a bit of a community that forms that means more than just a meeting together. Um, and we want these characteristics in there. We want belonging, shared activity, mutual support, and we want it to be distinctive. Is our group. It's a little bit different to your group. I mean, if they were all the same, well, I would just go to your group. No, well, this is our group, and we do things a little bit our way. I mean, they all have common similarities, but you know, um, some church make their groups really distinctive in terms of women's groups, men's groups, couples groups. Our church does that a little bit. But there's a reason you've chosen the group that you go to, and the people are a part of that because it has its own distinctives. Um, what are some signs a church small group has developed a healthy little community, not just a meeting? What do you reckon? Let's pick on the Matthews since we can see them tonight.
Look, I think connection outside of that, like you said, it's more than just meeting that once a week. Are the people in the group connecting outside of it? Is everyone supporting each other in that group? Is probably one of the big ones. And I
Great.
just don't know why Glenn doesn't have his video on. I mean, we've got ours on. So, come on.
He's probably eating dinner. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
am eating dinner.
There you go. Let's judge all the people with their screens off. Um, very good, very good. And groups go through stages. Oftentimes, when you're just newly part of a group or you haven't been connected there that much, that shared activity may not be there. And different demographics are much better than this than others. So, for example, my experience over the years is that small groups in our culture really flourish amongst the young adults and the post kids, right? Why? Why do you reckon that might be?
I
Oh,
think you hit the nail on the head with the post kids, the second word in
post
there.
post kids. Time, yeah, very good. They have time, and the best young adult groups that you find, generally the young adults are living in each other's pocket, really. Um, you know, we as married families are married, with kids, we might struggle to drag ourselves to a meeting and then we chat before church and after. But young adults, mate, it's not only are they going to church, they're hanging out for 2 hours after church. And then Monday night they're doing something, Thursday night they're doing something, Wednesday night they're doing something. You got people serving on teams at church, not because they're passionate about serving, because that's where all their friends are. And so young adult groups really, um, that community seems to build quickly, and also post kids. I would say a lot of the healthiest groups in our church are, women at the well, and there's a couple of other. I know the Greers run a group. I know Denise has got a ladies group with people that are kids are mostly done now. They've moved out of home, and they have more time to share activity, to support each other, to be around each other. So it is more of a challenge for people with kids. You've got to try and include your family somehow, in all your activity doing, or you break it up where the men can go out sometime, the women go out sometime, that sort of thing. Let's keep going. So, how does a leader foster community? Well, we create space for fellowship during meetings. That goes without saying. So, when people come to our small group, it's not just as soon as they get in, grab your Bible out, let's go. Our group has a meal. where we just chat. I think it's great. Uh, Lead by example. If you want a group that has great community, you've got to be someone who invests and is involved in that community. You can promote wider church events and lead involvement yourself. Don't just say, hey, this is on, everyone. Go if you want. And they say, come on, I'm going. I can't wait to see you there. And we facilitate low-level pastoral care. Now, we discussed that a little bit last week. I want to just dive into that more before we talk some more leadership stuff. Pastoral care tasks, when you think about it, can be split into three categories. Things the group, say my small group, can and should handle independently. Things the group can handle, but should let the church office know about. And things the group are not equipped to handle and should refer to the church office. So I've got some examples on the page here for us to look at of things that might require a little bit of pastoral care or looking after one another in our group. So if we've got a lady in our group called Jane, and Jane has broken her hip, poor Jane. So I'm thinking of my group, someone in the group has broken their hip. The old traditional pastoral care model is, well, the church pastors need to go and visit Jane in hospital. They need to organise everyone to sign a card. They need to take her some flowers. It's got to be the senior pastors. They've got to be up there and they've got to pray for Jane. What do you reckon? Which level of pastoral care is this one, Meg? What are you thinking?
I guess I'm thinking like it's something good for everyone to pray for, but maybe that people in the Connect group would go visit her in hospital.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So yes, do you reckon we should let the church office know we've got a member in hospital?
Yeah. Yeah,
You said that with a very high pitch.
I
Yes,
did.
yes, I agree. I totally agree. Um, I think of our senior pastors particularly. If we had someone in our group in hospital, and we're a great proactive group, and we decide we're going to, cook meals for the family or whatever we're going to do, and then Pastor Denise doesn't find out about it till a month later, she's going to be mortified. All right. She wants to be across these things. She wants to know somebody's looking after those things, and because that's their responsibility, they feel a a responsibility to care for the flock, and they don't necessarily are going to go and visit Jane, but they just want to know Jane's in hospital. Okay, right. I'm so glad someone's looking after her. What about Alan? Silly Alan confesses to an affair. Peter, what do you reckon? What level?
I'll go straight to number three.
Straight to number three. Um, Things the group are not equipped to handle and should refer to the church office. Yeah, I would, without knowing the context, let's put that in number three. Sam, welcome back, mate. We're just talking about fostering community in small groups and the different levels of things that can go on and how we should handle that as a small group leader. Organising meals for a new mother. So someone in the group has had a baby. It's great to organise meals for them for the time because we know that those silly men are just terrible cooks or something like that. Glenn Noble, what do you reckon?
Which one? Sorry, I was reading the Tim one.
So organise meals for a new mother.
Oh, you're just a small group can do that.
Yeah, they can. I think so. Absolutely. We don't need to palm that off to the church office. Our church office does, on occasion, take the lead in that for certain people, but we don't have to. I mean, if we're a good functioning small group, we're going to handle that for a bit. Tim has decided to leave the church. Why, Tim? Come on. What do you reckon, Janine?
I'd probably say two.
Yeah, that's probably a good. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's we don't know the context. There might be more to it than that, but yeah, two. Tim comes and says, "I'm leaving." bad enough. Yeah, we'd let the church office know, let the pastors know, but generally we're not going to go sprint after them. People want to leave, they want to leave. Oops, sorry, I'll go back there. Mary hasn't been at church for a month. What are we going to do about that, Dylan?
I think it's probably one, but like I said, without the context, like what is, small group reach out first, go, hey, how you going? But then, it can probably escalate to, depending on, like I said, what the context is, probably two or three.
Yeah, I think starting at one is good. If someone from my group hasn't been at church for a month, I don't ring the office and go, hey, just letting you know. They haven't been at church for a month. No, but you can reach out to them yourself. You don't need the church pastors to reach out to them. You can reach out to them. Say, hey, I hope you're doing okay. Let's talk to Meg again. There's a marriage on the brink of divorce, and the couple needs some serious counselling. What are we going to do, Meg?
Maybe 3.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
Now
they can help more. Yeah.
that's true. And again, context, there may be some occasions where that married couple is a really good friend of yours and you've known them for years and they don't want it public but they're just coming to you. But you've got to know your zone. You've got to know that, hey, you're not necessarily the professional marriage counselor. And so you've got to walk wisely and go, well, what am I equipped to do? When do I need help? That sort of thing. So it's not all just black and white, but yes. Micah needs a babysitter for the weekend. Sam, if you're with us and you've caught on to what's going on here, can this something that the Connect group handles by themselves, or do we need the senior pastors to help us with that? He may not be there. Okay. I'll answer for Sam. If you bother the senior pastors with that, just hand in your Connect Group leader's license. Okay. You're done. Okay.
Sam's messaging. He said number one.
Oh, good.
Sorry, I'm just texting because I'm eating and I don't want to give everyone food
Very good.
ASMR.
We got you, Sam. Thank you, Dylan. Let's do one more. Actually, let's do the bottom two. Oh, what have I done here? Gosh. I'm doing this all left-handed, people. Okay. Susan's struggling with thoughts of suicide. Now, if someone came to you, Glenn, and they're in your group and she's telling you this, what are you thinking?
Probably 3.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, context is key. There may be extenuating circumstances in certain cases, but that screams 3 to me. Tommy thinks the preaching at church is unscriptural. All right. What are we going to do about this, Peter? I lost Peter.
No, I'm there.
There he is.
I was just reaching for the space bar. Um, yeah, that's tough because you'd have the discussion probably one-on-one, but yeah, you'd probably refer it if it's growing, if that discontent is growing or infecting other people, you'd probably have to let the church office know.
Yeah, my general reaction is, you've got a problem with, something that's happening with the pastor or something. You've got his number. You know where the office is. Why are you bothering me about it? Unless they're coming to you with the right spirit, saying I'm just struggling with something and I need some advice. That's different. But if it's coming from that critical spirit, then it's like, hey, off you go. Go and have fun. You go talk to them. I'm not your intermediary. Sometimes they're telling you because they want support. And you've got to be wise as to, are they trying to recruit me here or are they genuinely struggling with something? So all good. Let's continue on. All right. 2 big leadership lessons for tonight I want to talk to. The first one, casting vision. This is the job of all leaders, no matter what sphere. And not many people have been taught some practical little steps or tips on how to cast vision or sell a vision. So first question, what is vision? And why is it important for a small group to have vision? Well, let me just tell you the definition that I stole from Rick Warren. He says, vision is a picture of the future that produces passion. I like that. A picture of the future that produces passion. Vision creates buy-in and gains commitment, initiative, and ownership. Right? Creates buy-in, creates commitment, initiative, and ownership. So sometimes we've been bad in church circles, particularly. We don't sell vision very well. What we do is we sell the cause. And I'll explain the difference. So the cause is why. You know, what we need to do. We need to get people saved. If we don't get them saved, they're going to go to hell. Do we all agree with this? Yeah, semantics, but yes. All right, we need to make disciples. We need to evangelize. We need to look after the poor and the needy because the Bible says so, and Jesus' example did it. I've not said anything wrong, but I've not painted any picture of the future that produces passion. What I've done is I've just sold the cause, the why, the what. The Bible says, because it's Christ says, because to be a good Christian, because if we don't, this is going to happen. That is not selling vision. That's the cause. Vision is a picture. Vision is a different future that you want people to see and to own. Okay? And it creates excitement. The common example I use is when I first bought a house with my wife, it was a bit of a fixer-upper. The problem with that, I have no skills.
Your wife or the house?
Good question,
Sorry, that was
Stan.
disrespectful.
Good question. I'm
Sorry, that's
giving
out
my
of-
wife your photo, and she'll see you on Sunday. No,
Sorry.
the house was terrible. I had no skills. Now, I knew it needed work. It was obvious. But just because I knew it needed work didn't excite me about doing the work. In fact, for about 2 years, we did no work. Nothing. It was too small for Connect Group. It was just shocking. We just didn't know what to do because I didn't know where to start, whatever. One night, as I'm trying to sleep, I have an idea. We're going to knock out this load-bearing wall. We're going to build in the patio. We're going to extend the living room. I tell you, I couldn't sleep for hours because for the first time in a couple of years, I could see a picture that produced passion, and I got excited. Within 3 months, the wall was knocked out. The patio was extended. We laid this beautiful timber flooring. We put an air conditioner in. We had a beautiful, big living space. Connect Group was much better to host, that sort of thing. 2 years of inaction. As soon as you get a vision, there's action. There's buy-in, there's initiative, there's commitment. So the cause was always there. The issue was always there. But having a cause and the issue does not produce passion. It does not get people moving. We all know we're meant to save the lost. We all know we're meant to evangelize. We all know we're meant to look after the needy. We all know what happens if we don't. We all know those things. Just knowing them and knowing the cause. And sometimes preachers and leaders will get up and that's what they'll hammer, and they expect everyone to leave the building and rush out and start doing it. I've been going to church for 40 years. It doesn't happen. You understand what I'm saying? But when somebody gets up and paints a picture. This is what we're going to do. This is what it's going to look like, right? People start getting excited and they start taking action. Let me just pause before we talk about how to do that. Anybody want to jump in? Is that making sense? Or am I talking crazy talk? All right.
Sorry, just to butt
Go,
in.
Sam.
Yet again, sorry for that joke. It was pretty insensitive.
Sam, there's no snowflakes here. Keep going.
I know, but boundaries, I guess.
No, all good.
Just careful, Sam. Ben will dish it right back to you, mate.
Yeah, I know. He already did with the photo, but there's more than Ben here, so I figured I'd just say that to everyone. So question, what is vision? Why is it important for a small group to have vision? So, if you don't have vision, I guess my understanding of vision is you've got what you want to do, right?
hmm
But if it's just what you want, you're probably just shoving stuff down people's throats. But if you've actually got more connection with people, a bit more variety of who can do this, who can do that, we're going to do this here, we're going to do that there, we're going to explain this well. Like, is that when would that be how you start to have vision or?
Yeah, so we're going to talk now about how to cast vision. Um, so you're starting to branch into that about how do you express it. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll get to that in just a second. I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. You can see the difference between a cause and a vision, a need and actually a picture that gets people excited. So I always think back to that renovation because it to me is when the penny dropped. I needed to do this for years, did nothing until I could see something, and then I did something. So here's how. Let's again use the small group context for our lesson. But like I said, you can apply this in business, apply this anywhere. Here's some things we can actually do to cast vision in our small groups, in our churches, in our ministries, in our jobs, all right? First of all, let's tell the story of our church or of our connect. Context and story connects people to the vision. I used to, when I first hosted small groups up in Townsville, I was doing this without knowing I was doing it. Because I don't know, that's just, I was trying to get people excited. So I would say to people, when I was leading youth and young adults, I'd say, hey, guys, we started these connect groups 18 months ago with 4 groups. And now we've got 10 groups. And we started with only 1 guys, 3 girls groups. Now we've got 5 guys groups, 5 girls groups. And we've had people come in from every suburb, people at the university. And I just feel like God's really doing something here, right? So telling that story of the progression of our groups, all of a sudden, people are starting to see something. Okay? They're starting to get connected to it just by telling a story of that. Pastor Rob does this well with our school. We have this thing on Wednesday called Founders Day. He's going to get up and tell the story of our school. We started with just one crummy old building somewhere and like 8 kids. And God gave us a vision, and he's going to show photos of all the old buildings and how it's all happened and this miracle of how we got this land. And everybody in the room is going to see this story of this vision that unfolded, right? And they're going to get connected to it. They're going to get excited by this. They can see the context of what they're doing. Trouble is, a lot of our small groups is we don't sell the context of what we're doing, the wider context of the group and the story, and people don't think about it. They just think they're coming for a meal and a chat and they're leaving. But when you remind the group continually that we are meeting as part of groups all over the city, we are meeting as groups of our local church, and we're doing this, and the reason we're doing it, people start to get a little bit excited. They start to connect to it. They can see the why, not just the the cause, but they can see what's being built, and they might get a little bit more committed, start taking a little bit more ownership, a little bit more initiative. Another thing you can do is talk about where you see the group going. You can do this in any sphere of leadership. When I used to lead the youth and young adults, every Friday night when I was up in front of my teenagers, I would tell them about where I see our youth ministry going. Guys, look around this room tonight. There's 30 of us here. I'm telling you, it won't be long till there's 50, 60 of us here. I can see it happening. You know, we bust in kids from one school tonight. I reckon it won't be long and we'll be busing in kids from 2, 3 schools. In fact, my dream is that we're going to have a bus going to every school, particularly the state high schools, the rougher schools in town, and kids that have never heard the gospel. There's going to be buses parked outside, and there's going to be kids from every school coming. You see that? That's not cause, is it? That's vision. You can imagine buses parked out the front. You can imagine kids coming in from every school. When I was talking to small groups, I'd say, hey, you know, we've got 4 of us in here tonight. Sally couldn't make it. Tommy couldn't do it. But I'm telling you, I'd love to see every seat in this room filled. I'd love to see us to have a group in every suburb of Mackay. I'd love to, you know, there's so many people in Mackay who need the love of Jesus. Imagine if we had an Alpha course going in every school. We've got one in MCF. Imagine we've got an Alpha course going in every school in the city. Imagine. It's just about imagination. What can you see? And so when you're talking about your position in your small group, you just start to say, hey, we've been going for 6 months and we've had 2 new couples in the church come along. You know, they've just moved from out of town. You know, there's a lot of families moving to Mackay at the moment. They're coming from overseas. They're coming from there. You know what? I can see this group filling up with 4 more families by the end of the year. You know, we've got 2 South Africans and 1 Australian and 1 Indian. You know, this is going to be a multicultural group. I can see us reaching to people that are from all over the nations. You say those sorts of things, people in the group, they can start to see what you're talking about. You're not just talking about we need to reach everyone. You can see us reaching everyone. And what would this place look like when that happens? Is this making sense so far? Hopefully. All right. So you're saying those sorts of things. I used to do it. I'm not as good as it these days. I used to do it every meeting. You can never talk about vision too much, right? When the people are getting sick of you talking about, well, when you think they're getting sick of it, they're really just starting to catch it. So I used to, when I was leading ministries, it would just be a thing that I did, and every time I got people together, devote 1 or 2 minutes of every sermon, 1 or 2 minutes of every staff meeting, 1 or 2 minutes of every team meeting to vision. But I never said to them, hey guys, this is our 2 minutes of vision time. They didn't know I was doing it. It was just interwoven, a little thing you'd put in about where we've come from, what I can see in the future. Imagine this, imagine that. This is what God's called us to do, who we're going to be, who we're going to reach. The more specific you make it, the more defined you make it, the more people can grab hold of it. I'm not just saying things for the sake of it, right? I've got to have a vision I believe in, something I really feel called to. If I can see it really clearly, then I can define it really clearly.
Yeah.
Sam, were you going to say something?
Yeah, so you've just explained it. I repeat things so that I can remember it a bit easier.
Yep.
So it's just at the end of the day, there's passion behind it. But it's just something that you do regardless. Is sharing that vision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think, particularly in church circles, vision is undersold. There's a chronic lack of vision casting in most churches. All right, we go through the stuff, we advertise our events, but we don't sell vision, and we sell jobs, not vision. Okay, and we're going to talk about that on the next slide. Another thing you can do to cast vision is to celebrate progress. Never miss an opportunity to celebrate a win with the team. Because when you celebrate a win, in doing so, you're reminding them of the journey you're on and what you're heading towards. So one of the things, this is great in a youth, young adult ministry. Anytime somebody brought a new person on a Friday night or brought a new person to Connect Group, mate, we make a big deal about that. We say, hey, how good is Jimmy here? Jimmy, this is the third friend you've brought along this term. Let's big hand for Jimmy, right? Imagine if we had 5 Jimmys here and everybody was bringing just one friend this term. We would have to get more chairs out. This place would be going off. We'd be the talk of every school. So good on you, Jimmy. Give him a reward, whatever. Everyone thinks I'm just talking Jimmy up. What I'm really doing is casting vision. Okay. Same thing in Connect groups. You can't be as obvious about it in Connect groups, but one thing I like to do with Connect groups is I always rave on about how good the food is because I've got a vision for food at Connect groups. And I'm telling them, well, this is the best spread we've ever had. And then guess what? The week after, the spread's even better. People are committed. They're getting excited about this food we're eating. And we relate everything back to the group's purpose and vision. So, if I was leading a Sunday service or running that thing, every now and then I'd just be throwing in, the reason we give on a Sunday is because God has called us to build this church here and to reach these people. And as we give, I can see that it's going to provide for this and we're going to be able to buy that. We're going to be able to do that. So the giving is building the vision. The reason we worship, we're not just worshiping here for the fun of it and because it's a religious thing to do. Worship does this and worship achieves that. And God is building here a house of worship. He's called us to be a house of worship. And I can see people coming from towns and they'll hear about this house of worship here. And I'll see this and I'll see that. And you talk about what you can see, why you're doing it, what you're building. People get excited. They get commitment, initiative, and ownership. Is that making, I'm not raving on too much. Hopefully that's making sense to everyone. Okay, it's obviously not on the next page. I thought it was. One of the incorrect ways we go about it is we often sell jobs to people instead of selling vision. So if you ever heard, you would have because you've all been in church for a while, doesn't matter what church you go to, you'll get the occasional, let's take Night of Nations, for example, right? The incorrect way I won't say the incorrect, the less effective way to get people to help out at Night of Nations is to sell jobs. Get up and say, hey, we need people to cook. We need people to sell drinks. We need more servers. We need more of this. That's selling a job. Rarely do people in the crowd go, oh, a job? Oh, I'm just going to get there and work. How exciting. Yes. I'll jump in. Now, you will get some nice people who volunteer because they're just nice people. And thank God that we have some nice people around. But you hear it in church all the time. We need more people on the service team. We need more people on kids. We need more people on production. And occasionally we'll put the call out. We need more of this. We need more of that. Again, you'll get the dribs and the drabs come in because as bad as we do things, God is good and people are good. And so that happens. The more effective way, and Night of Nations, we're actually pretty good at this, which is why we get such buy-in, is we don't talk about jobs. We talk about the vision of the night. This room is going to be full of flags from all different nations. And we're going to have food and fun and performances from people from the Pacific Islands and the Middle East. And we're going to celebrate cultures. I'll tell you what, you'll have never tasted food like this. You'll have never seen a room as fun and as packed like this. And you can be a part of it. We're just looking for people to help us make that happen. We just need people on the door. We need people on that. Hey, if you want to help to see that thing happen, go and see Jimmy after the service, whatever. You hear what I'm saying? The difference between we need a worker and this is the vision. It's a big difference. So, you need to think about the way, if you're in a leadership role somewhere, are you selling jobs or are you casting vision? If you cast vision, people are attracted to vision. Vision attracts resources, it attracts effort, it attracts giving, it attracts generosity, it attracts volunteers. That's what vision does. Jobs, they repel those sorts of things. So if you're struggling with a lack of resource in some area, a lack of motivation, a lack of commitment from people, the one reaction is to blame them and to say they need to be more committed, they need to be more generous, they need to be more this, they need to be more that. Well, at the end of the day, blaming them doesn't change anything. How about we change the vision that we're articulating and communicating, and we'll see that those things change. All right, I think I've raved on a fair bit there. Let me just pick on some people so I don't have to talk too much for a moment. Glenn, you've been in church life for a long time, I'm assuming, at least a year. I'm kidding. Talk to us. Is there something that comes to your mind when I'm talking about selling jobs versus vision? Do you think I'm right in to say this is the way that's generally been done, or have you been part of some good communities where you think vision's been sold well? Give us some thoughts.
I've been a part of both, I guess, where vision's been sold well and everyone's got on board and people are giving lots of money and all sorts of stuff. That was really exciting and passionate. And I guess the other side as well, it's I guess it's difficult for me. I'm an engineer, so I'm a problem solver. I just
Hmm.
want to, the vision side is hard, but I'm happy to jump on board and start solving stuff or thinking about stuff.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's the vision thing's a challenge.
No, that's cool. What about Dylan and Janine? What comes to your mind when talking about these things? Have you seen some good examples?
Yeah, look, I think to Glenn's point as well, like yeah, we've seen both things, and the most exciting times has been when you're aligned with the vision of what you were trying to achieve there. Like I think back to when we were part of a church plant in the Northern Beaches. We were talking about we're going to see, we're going to have 100 people in this hall, and then we hit 100, and then it was, right, we want to see 150, and this is how we're going to do it. And you got behind that.
Yeah.
But I was actually just talking to Janine. I was like, like I know, Pastor Rob has a heart for that, but I was like, what is MCF's vision? Like I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head, just to be completely honest.
Yeah, no. Well, that's a good point. And good news is that they are discussing that and trying to re-articulate that. So and that's a need that's been recognised. Um, and we say that, but you don't build the kind of school and church that has been built without vision. So it's definitely been there, it's definitely existed, but you're right. Maybe now's the time to re-articulate, refresh,
I think
particularly for people that are newish yet.
think on that though, like how often, you know, sort of like, when you're sitting down and doing a business plan, like where I work now, you do like a 5-year plan, but then you got like yearly sort of things to that. Like a vision for, and I know this is very tailored to small groups, but your vision for the small group is not necessarily, would you need to go like, right, this year, this is what our small group, and in 5 years, this is what our small group would be if we related more to that sort of leadership style of thing.
Yeah, no, the half-life of a small group probably doesn't lend itself to a 5-year plan, which is a good pickup. But that's why every, I guess, context is different. Every role is different. Small groups really function the best when there's an emphasis through the whole church and the vision is clear to the whole church and how small groups fit into that. And then you, as the small group leader, as we talked about last week, you're not creating a new vision, you're interpreting or you're drawing down from the wider church's vision and saying, this is what we as a church are trying to achieve and how we fit into that. And this is where I see us fitting into that and what we're going to look like in 3, 6, 9 months as we do that. I mean, for me, my wife and I, when we got to Mackay, we bought this house we're in now in 2020. COVID hit. But we started our Connect group in November that year. Um, And the vision we believed in and Pastor Rob was championing on us was get some families together and start connecting. And we sold that vision and we believed in that vision and we could see it. And we would talk about it almost every week until we got to the point where we had 50 people here, including kids, on a regular basis there in 2021. Um, and people got a hold of, yes, we're going to welcome. We're going to these, yeah, they were tackling people as they came in on a Sunday morning almost. You're new, drag them to the group. So that's what your small group is supposed to do. Get that emphasis of the wider church, dumb it down to you. So this is how we fit in. This is what we're going to do for the church, how it's going to work. Okay, let's keep going. So the other topic I wanted to spend a little bit of time on tonight, that again, people don't get taught how to or get some tips on how to, is how to raise up a leader. Okay? Why is it important to raise up small group leaders? Well, for the sake of time, I'll just summarize. I'll just jump in. Without more leaders, we don't have more small groups. Okay? Or we don't have succession, we don't have expansion, we don't have multiplication. We've just got the same people doing the same things, and when they fall over, we've got no one. Okay, so we need small group leaders. So raising leaders usually consists of the following steps. Number one, creating buy-in. If people aren't committed and bought in, that they can't lead in our organization. Identifying potential leaders. Not everybody has the potential, if we're saying about small group, to lead a small group. Not everybody has that capability. Overcoming objections, mentoring, and releasing. Okay, so how do we've talked about creating buy-in because we've just talked about casting vision, but how do we identify leaders? You're running a small group. What are you looking for in a future leader? Meg, what comes to your mind?
Someone that goes back to that question ages ago we discussed, communication. Someone that communicates.
Yeah, communicate. So that's a characteristic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Peter, what's something you're looking for in a small group leader? You're on mute, Pete. That silly space bar.
It stops on me every now and then. I'd be looking for someone who's involved or like goes along to other things as well, things that are happening in the church, not just occasional,
Yeah,
so that you
great.
can see a commitment to the church in general, not just to one thing that they're into.
Great. So if we think of stuff that we talked about last week, we talked about character, we talked about commitment, and I would add a third, capability. So they need to really have all three to be a leader in our church or a leader in our small group. The character is non-negotiable. Now they don't have to be Jesus, but as the Bible says, the husband of but one wife is kind of important. Not with a court summons next week for robbing banks, or not with any AVOs against them or something like that. So character, commitment. Commitment is super important. If they're not committed to the group, they're not committed to the church as a whole, they can be the best, nicest person and the most capable person. But I tell you, it will end in tears if they're not committed. Absolutely end in tears. Just always does. And thirdly, capable. So you've got to be able to observe them and say, they can hold conversation, they can draw people a little bit, that sort of thing. So if you've got those three together, and we're only talking small groups in this context, so they don't have to be an amazing at any of those things. They've just got to have some basic requirements, then they're a candidate. And the question is that often, if you're struggling to think, if you've got a group and you're struggling to think who would be the person in my group, ask yourself that question. If I was away this week or I fell sick, who would run my group? And that person that pops into your mind, you've subconsciously identified them as a leader. You kind of know, okay, if I fell over, that person would pick it up. Generally, the answer to that question, that's how you identify someone with the potential to be a leader. So once you've found someone, they're committed, they're capable, good character, wouldn't it be awesome if they just, like you just said to them, hey, you want to lead a group, and every single one of those people who committed, fulfilled those three categories, all just said, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And then they all just jumped on board and led a group, and we just had like 50 groups. Wouldn't that be awesome? Does it happen that way? No. How many people do you reckon? Let's say our church on any given Sunday, there's 200 people there. Most of the time, there's more, including kids. Let's just say there's 200 people there. How many of those 200 people, in your estimation, have the character, the commitment, and the capability, they're good, committed people to our church, to lead a small group? Do you reckon we've got 50 people in the room that if they had to, they could do it? Do you reckon we've got 30 people in the room? If they had to, they could do it.
Probably not. No offense. But I think about, is this a rhetorical question or are you actually asking us?
No, no, no. You give me your opinion. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think about, let's say, for example, if you were doing a service and you asked me up, I'd have no idea what was going on. I think something that's really important um, for like not just myself, but for all of us to recognize is sometimes we think we're capable and we're not. And we can confuse that capability with a passion we have. And we can tend to make things a little bit harder to understand by very energetically just dribbling, I guess. Like if you
Yep.
took my, I've got a bunch of atheist mates. All right, I'm probably the only Christian that I know out of my own life prior to coming to church.
Yep.
So when I first started, I was dribbling like LeBron when it came to um, just talking about Jesus, talking about the Bible. You got like all the theories and all of this, and I don't understand this, so I'm trying to figure it out. And if you put that up in front of a church, it would be a joke.
Okay.
So
No, some good
not
points.
not necessarily a terrible thing because if a person has that passion, generally they want to get somewhere and do something with it, but they need to be guided and nurtured correctly and be able to self-regulate to a point where they can do what they're called to do properly.
Yeah, good. So let me ask the question differently then, because I'm thinking differently to the rest of you here. What about with some mentoring and coaching?
Mm.
How many people do you reckon on 200 on a Sunday morning, not including kids? I'm talking over the age of 16, with the right mentoring and coaching, how many small group leaders do you reckon, potential small group leaders are in the room? You reckon there's more than 50? Dylan and Janine are disagreeing with one another. Um, that's so. Talk to me, Dylan and Janine.
I know, maybe I see more positives in people. I'm like, I see the good potential. And I think with coaching and confidence and all that, like they could have the potential. Like, I know, I just feel like sometimes people lack the confidence or ability in themselves. And if they're catching on to the vision and trusting someone, it, it could work and go ahead. especially if they've got all three: commitment, capability, all those things. I think definitely potential there. I would not say no to that. So
I'd probably
So
say for
you're
what
like
Janine.
Qui-Gon.
Janine's like 50. I'm also saying like
Qui-Gon.
15 to 20. That's where I'm saying like I reckon there's probably like 1 in 10 who are going to be your your real people who are capable. That it's probably a pessimistic view, but yeah.
But even then, like that's a good thing. That's 20 out of 200 that are probably willing to be leaders in the future. Small
All right,
or big. Like I did
so
kind of put the impression out that I was like thinking about pastors and whatever, because Pastor Ben's here. But um yeah, that's a really the positive outlook Janine has is really cool.
I
Sorry,
think
you've
so.
taken over
Yeah,
a little bit. I'll let you just talk. This is just
that's
really
cool.
exciting for me.
Let me just pick on Dylan one more time. So let's say you're saying there's only maybe potentially only 20. Which of the three is it? Is it commitment? Is it character? Or is it capability holding most people back?
I'd say it's commitment. But
Okay.
that's personally. For myself, I'd just go, look, I don't think I can commit because our lives change from term to term, semester to semester with our kids and their activities. So yeah,
All right. So if
if I had to make an excuse for myself, it would be commitment.
how many of the 200 do you think are capable?
I'd probably say, yeah, you probably at 40 or 50 are capable.
40, 50. Now we
Yeah,
start to believe in people. Okay. All right.
yeah.
Let's get one more opinion. Glenn, what are you thinking? How many out of 200?
5 to 10.
5 to 10. Yes.
Attaboy,
Wow.
Glenn.
You meant 5 to 10,000, right?
No, well, how many life groups are in the church?
Oh, that's true. That's true. So I have a different view. I'm more of a Janine. I think if it's if commitment, you put commitment aside, I don't think leading a connect group is that difficult. In fact, I think everybody in this chat could lead a connect group. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm just saying um, and every Cert 4 student that was here this year and last year has the capability and the character to lead a connect group. And I personally would say there's probably, with the right coaching, 70 to 80 in a church of about 200 that if they wanted to and set their mind to it, I feel like they could do it. But that's okay. My reason for asking that is it would be good. Let's just compromise and say there's 40 in our church of 200. Glenn is right. We only have near on 10 connect groups, right? So let's pretend that there's 30 capable people sitting in our pews every Sunday. They're committed to the church. They've got great character. They're capable, but they're not putting their hand up. This is how every church is. There's plenty of capable people on the seats, not putting their hand up, and some of them have very real reasons why not. What happens is generally when you approach someone to step up into a leadership role, they have objections. Claire shared her story on Sunday morning when Pastor Rob approached her about taking the youth on. She had objections, right? There were all sorts of excuses rising up in her mind or in her heart. Most of us have some very real reasons why we don't say yes to certain things. Pastor Rob asked me 3 years ago to come on staff at church. I had an objection. I still have the same objection. Um, what do we do as a leader, or what are some things we can do as a leader to actually take on people's objections to leadership? This is the part of raising leaders that I think nobody really teaches or nobody really broaches, is that we basically just put it out there, and if you want to, you can, right? You want to step up, you can. I've noticed over the years, the great leaders or the leaders that are great at raising up other leaders don't settle for that. And Pastor Rob is a great example. Um, he will take people on and call them out of their comfort zone and say, right, this is what I see for you. This is what I need from you. This is whatever. Why don't you step up and do this? And I'm sure he's been faced with many roadblocks over the years of people saying, I don't think I'm good enough. I don't have the time. I don't have this. I don't have that. I'm not prepared. Whatever it is. But he's been very good over the years at actually confronting those objections and getting a lot higher success rate. He doesn't just put out and say, hey, we need a youth pastor who's going to step up. He goes to someone and he says, hey, I think you're the person. I see this in you, whatever. So what are some ways, or what can we learn from someone like Pastor Rob on how to overcome objections? This isn't just in leadership and everything. Well, here's three things. Number one, don't accept disingenuous excuses or fake excuses, but get to the real objection. So, what does that mean? Generally, in any form of life, people, when they say no for some bogus reason. Not all the time. Some people are honest. If you, as a leader, accept the bogus reason, that is, you just, you accept their half-hearted reason, the issue is you never get to the real objection. And you have no chance of getting a positive outcome unless you can get to the real objection. I'll give you an example. I used to sell solar panels. I remember selling, oh no, don't hate me. It was a job I had for 3 months. I was in someone's house and I was going through my sales pitch, and this guy and this lady were their older couple, and the guy raised objection after objection, and I handled each and every one. The lady just sat there quietly. At the end, he put pen to paper, he signed a contract for this $8,000 system. I walked out the door. I called my wife. I said, darling, I've got us another sale. We're going to eat well this week, right? 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from that man saying, sorry, I'm just going to make use of my cooling off period. We're not going to go through. I said, what happened? He said, my wife disagrees and she says we need the money for something else. Here's the thing. I handled every single one of his objections, but none of them were the real objection I needed to handle. The real objection was in her heart or in her mind, and I never got the chance. This is what happens when you confront most people. They'll tell you something, they're embarrassed usually about their real objection. They'll tell you something like, I don't have time. I don't have the time, I'm not good enough. I don't have this, I don't have that. If you accept that, that's cool. But that's not generally the real objection. The real objection is oftentimes, I don't want to. When someone says they don't want to, you've hit the real objection. Or, I'm ashamed of my house. It's not big enough. It could be, when Pastor Rob asked me to come on staff, the real objection is you guys don't pay enough. No. The real objection is I've been on that side of the fence before, and I'm going to have to get dragged kicking and screaming. I'm enjoying myself way too much over on this side of the fence at the moment. And I feel like God has given me this side of the fence for a reason, and I'm not letting it go without a very good, clear visit from the angel Gabriel. Okay. But if I just said to him, no, I'll think about it, or I just don't see myself going that way. a lot of times we give these little disingenuous excuses. We, as a leader, we accept them. We never really push. That's fine. Your job is to just get to the real objection. Doesn't mean that you'll overcome the real objection. Oftentimes you don't. But you at least need to get to the real objection if you're ever going to raise up a leader. Because unless you get to the real objection, you have no chance of convincing them and talking them around, confronting them with the truth. Hopefully that's making sense to everybody so far.
Yeah.
I'll get
Can I
some
add to
questions
that
at the
a
end.
little bit?
Sorry, Sam, what was that?
Sorry, can I add to that just a little bit?
Yeah, go on.
I don't want to take time, but so you said get to their objections so that you can make them, or possibly like get them to get over that objection.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
confront it.
Yeah. So as long as that objection is clear and both of you can recognize it, they can work on it and get through it, and you've at least helped them see it, kind of thing.
Yeah, true. Sometimes people are unaware of their real objection. They're lying to themselves. They say it's this, but it's not really that. The
Yeah.
second thing you do when you're talking to a leader, you're trying to raise someone up, make it about them and the call of God on their life and what God's doing through them. When I want a new Connect group leader, the worst way or the least effective way I can go about it is to say, hey, we need someone to take on a group. Why don't you do that? That's true, but way more success if you actually have a heart for them and say, hey, and this is the way Pastor Rob does it. I can tell you from experience because he's done it with many people over the years, and I've been in the room. He doesn't say, hey, we need a youth pastor, or hey, we need a kids pastor. He says, hey, I can see a call of God on your life. And if you just sit still and don't develop that call, you're going to miss out on what the Lord has for you. I believe, we've got a role here where you can step up, you can learn on the job, you can get mentoring, and you can start to develop the gifts and the talents God has put on you and start to take you forward into your future and in your destiny. Do you see the different ways you approach that? I've got a job for you? No. I've got something where you're going to develop, where God's call and gifts are going to take you on. So make it about them. If they say no to that, that's fine. But I'm not just grabbing a leader because I need a job done. I'm here to raise people up. Okay? And the last thing is it's related to that. Don't make it about need. Make it about vision. Okay? We don't need you to run a Connect group. We are growing our Connect group ministry. And we can see in the next year we're going to have this and we're going to have that. We can see this house filling up. We're going to be getting more families in. We're going to be getting more young adults in. We're believing for more leaders. You can be part of that type of thing. So instead of selling the job, instead of selling the need, make it about vision, make it about self-actualization. And if they throw up objections, that's fine. At the end of the day, it's their decision. And we don't hate people. We don't judge people because they say no. All right. They will reap the consequences of their own decisions. And some people need to say no. You might have got it wrong. Just because you think you've identified a great leader, God is also speaking to them and they've got other dreams and plans and visions as well. But at least get to the real objection, is what I'm saying. Okay, we've gone way over time here tonight. So some final thoughts. Progress requires sacrifice. We're not here to make everyone happy and meet everyone's needs. If we've got that mindset as a small group leader, your group is destined to remain as it is and eventually to die a slow and painful death. It's just the way groups work. We need to be proactive in looking for new leaders, casting vision, taking the group forward. Groups go in stages. All right. There's a shelf life, a life cycle, I guess, of a small group. And most small groups are John the Baptist ministries. What do I mean by that? They're meant to die. Okay? The best thing John the Baptist did was when it was time for him to shrink, he shrunk. Sometimes small groups, you're great, everyone loves it. It's exactly what we needed for that season. But for when it's time for that season to finish, it needs to evolve, change, finish, move on, do something different, multiply, however you want to put it. Let's pick on some people for some final thoughts. What are you thinking, Peter?
I'll give you the world's quickest story. In 87, I was saved by a little outreach church in Early Beach. The pastor was, and it, after only weeks, he said, I was going to lead a small group. I froze on the spot. He said, You don't need to know anything. I'm just going to have one of the mature Christians sitting in with you, and I'll have the notes prepared. You'll be right. And that was it. And I didn't
Bring
know
back
any
the
better.
80s.
So exactly. And yeah, you grow, and if God will grow you into it. But yeah, we've had mentoring is definitely the way into it. That's for sure.
And we do have some slides on mentoring. We're not going to get to them tonight, but that's okay. Meg, I know you took the plunge and have started leading your own group. What are you thinking about everything we've shared tonight?
Yeah, no, definitely all great ideas. I think for myself, it's really challenged me as well to make sure like I cast vision
Yep,
because I want to make sure that it grows and evolves and not remains stagnant.
great,
But yeah, I think it's definitely challenging and it's in a good way.
awesome. And just remember, growth is not always numerical, so don't put pressure on yourself to say this thing has to keep growing in people. Like I say, groups have a life cycle, and some of them they're they're going to grow in numbers rapidly. Others, there's a period of, you know, your group is growing together, that community is growing, that pastoral care, the reliance upon one another is growing. And then you might see instead of your group growing numerically, someone decides, hey, I'm ready, through your great ministry, and they go off and lead their own thing, or they start branching out into this ministry. And you can be more of a sending group than a big gathering group. There's just all sorts of different ways for you to have an impact outside your group. Glenn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just trying to gather them in my head. Um, I guess it depends on the church's vision and that, but like some small groups are just to provide a place for people to connect.
Yep.
They're not necessarily focused to grow, to multiply, to raise up other leaders. It's just a reaction to a need, possibly. Um, yeah,
Yeah, no, that is true. Every church uses them in different ways. I think even those groups that are just a place for people to connect and hang out, um, there still needs to be a cycle through them, or they do get stale, or they can become a bit insular. But you're right. I guess they have a different or a slower life cycle than other groups. Keep going.
the other thought is there a place for followers or like it's very leader focused. I guess that's what the course is for as well. But not everyone can be a leader, I guess, but they all lead in some capacity. But some people need to follow as well.
Absolutely. No, you're right. 100%. There's space for followers. And um, I guess, yeah, you're right. In this, we're talking about raising leaders, um, because if you want those life cycles to go through, you do need more leaders, um, or succession, not even just more succession over the years. But no, you're 100% right. We need a huge number of followers, and not everyone is called or capable of, if we're talking about leading a small group, not everyone's capable, called to lead a small group, and not all the capable ones are called to lead a small group. They find another meaningful role in their group, 100%.
Would you say, just to go off what Glenn was saying a little bit, would you say that the progress required by a leader with sacrifice could be a self-sacrifice in the sense that they're a follower for a time?
Yeah, well, some people are a follower for a time. some people actually recognize in themselves they're not meant to be the number one leader of a
Mm.
small group at all, ever, or a number one leader of any kind of ministry ever. Some people are built, God designed them as great number twos, like as in great sidekicks, as great helpers,
Yeah.
uh, great getting around and amongst people rather than being the one up the front. And you need to recognize that, it does take a while for people to recognize that in themselves. Where do I fit? And that's why if we're into raising up leaders, need to take that time to identify, the right ones. And when you get some objections, you get to the real objections, you don't force it. We're not forcing leadership on anyone. We're not saying leaders are better than anyone. We're not saying everyone
Mm.
has to go down this path. Um, so, there's a fine line there where it's like, yes, we're eager to raise leaders, but not at the cost of healthy relationships and healthy Christianity and people living their life and, stifling their families and ruining their work-life balance and everything else God's called them to do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Thanks.
All right. Finally, what about the Matthews? Any final thoughts?
What comes to mind for me is when you're raising up a leader, I think it comes to trust. Like if Pastor Rob had to come up to like someone and say that you have a trust in him. So it's like you trust what he says. And he says, I foresee this in your life. There's a level of trust that you have. So kind of as a leader, if you're going to be bringing someone up, they have to see a level of trust in you and what you are foreseeing in them. So
Yep.
I feel like trust is an important thing to have.
Yep.
Yeah. So people, believe with what you're saying, not just, oh, she just wants another leader or he just wants another leader. It's like, I know, actually really see that. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And you raise a really good point there. And it's something I come across occasionally there is a difference between saying to someone about the gifts and talents or the call of God you see in their life. That's great. We don't want to slip over into that language of this is what I see in your future, or this is the path I see you going down. That kind of language can then be manipulative, where it's like, no, I'll talk about the gifts, the talents, and the call I can see, the anointing on your life, but I'm not going to prescribe to you. So that means that you have to go into youth leadership. That means you have to go into this. That means you have to go that way. That the cliche of someone coming in and saying, "God told me you're going to marry me." Um, we don't want to be those people. We're talking about self-actualization and the call and the gifts, not the specific pathway. I'm offering you an opportunity here to develop all those things. I'm not telling you God says you have to take it. There's a big difference in that. I don't ever say to someone, God says you've got to become the youth pastor. God says you're going to be in this and you're going to do this. And, that's for the prophets to say. I'm not saying when I'm offering a job or whatever, that God says you have to go that way. I'm just saying, I see this in your life. I've recognized that on your life. Here's an opportunity. Take it or leave it. Big difference. So I think it's a good distinction that you brought up there. All right. I think I've talked myself to a standstill. Um, all right. Well, that's it for tonight. There are some other slides. We don't really need to. There's some mentoring stuff. You can have a look at that now. And there's stuff there about releasing the leader once you've raised them up and they're going 100%. Some enemies to leadership development. I think they're all quite self-evident. The doing everything yourself because it's easier is the worst. A lot of leaders fall into that trap. And the resistance to change, the insular focus. I said this last week. People don't like change. People love things as they are. That's why they came and joined your group because they like it as it is, right? So yeah, we'll leave it at that. And next week we'll talk about church leadership and discuss the leadership development plans. Have a good night, everyone.